Oh, you know, this morning in the first service, people were asking me, how you doing in between services? And I said I was doing really well, and then I came to first service. And I did the first service, and I got a lot of, John was there, he sang today, and it was this, there was the universe needing to put a little resistance into my world. And every concept and idea that I espoused in the talk that you're about to hear, there seemed to be pushback. And I reflected on the teachers and the mentors that I had in seminary that said, if you're not pissing somebody off on any given Sunday, you're not doing your job. I did my job really well this morning. But you know, that's our job. My job as a minister is not to get you to agree with everything I say. My job is to make you think, or to help you think, to show you how to think for yourself, because when you think for yourself, the God that we were talking about can come alive in you. The God of your understanding can be alive. And so all the concepts I'm going to put out to you, you might feel a little bit of a rub. Good. That's a holy thing. That's a holy moment. You know, sometimes this can create the most beautiful blossoming. No mud, no lotus, as they say in the Buddhist tradition. So I'm going to let there be lots of mud today. Are we good with that? Yes. And let the lotus of your disagreement and your agreement be present in the room. And no throwing anything, okay? I'm not afraid of you. I love you, and that's why I stir the pot once in a while. Today is the second week in a series for the month of October. And at Unity North, we're about cultivation for the month of October. What are we cultivating? What are you cultivating in your life? We're cultivating dreams and visions and health and prosperity and well-being and joy and peace and all that is holy and sacred and beautiful in the world. We're cultivating it in the room, and we're cultivating it online as well. You're included. We're bringing you in here so you guys can be a little ticked off if you want as well online. But we're creating everything that is good. We're working in the realm of divine ideas, and we're pulling from the field of divine ideas that life may become heaven on earth. Last week we began with step number 1, the beginning and ending of all dreams, of all visions, of all realities, commitment. We cultivated commitment. It is the beginning and the end of anything in your life of any value coming to be. But commitment has a sister. Commitment has a partner, and it's the one we're going to talk about today, and that is consistency. Say that with me. Consistency. We're cultivating consistency today. Many of us, I'm sure you've all heard the old phrase, variety is the spice of life, right? We've all heard that. And it's a culture, it's the mindset of most of the world. It's certainly the mindset of the United States of America. Variety, it's all about something different and unique and wonderful. More is better, different is better, newer is better. And this mindset has infected our spiritual systems to the place that we have become nothing as a movement. And there might be something to this term consistency to have the Unity movement, and certainly the New Thought movement, get back at the forefront of leading consciousness, of leading thought, because it's thought and consciousness that is creating the world that we live in individually and collectively. But we say more is better, newer is better, and anything else is just plain boring. All this is feeding an egoic need to constantly seek new foods, new houses, new cars, new technologies, new relationships, new appliances, experiences, ideas, books, new religions, new everything to avoid boredom at all costs. And it's shown up in our spiritual systems where newness has replaced consistency as the focus. Starting to feel a little uncomfortable? Not yet. First service at this point was ready to start throwing things. Newness has replaced consistency as the focus of our spiritual path. Ask any spiritual teacher, any guru, anybody who's taught the planet and helped the planet become what it can be and the human race to become. This is a very dangerous place to live. And the Buddhists might say this is what they call the hungry ghost society. The hungry ghost, a consciousness that's never satisfied with the repetition. Never satisfied with the ritual or the constancy of life, always looking for something new. The incredible value of repetition, of consistency, of routine and ritual is missed because we're perpetually hungry. We're perpetually thirsty, looking for the new book or the new workshop or the new way to find God. And I always like to say we're a bunch of spiritual junkies walking the planet saying, hit me, baby, give me the next shot. When's Wayne Dyer coming back? Let's do a seance. You know, spiritual bookstores are absolutely a testament to what I'm talking about. Anybody recognize this? I'll do it. I'm guilty as charged. Walk into a spiritual bookstore to find a way to supplement my spiritual path, and there's so many choices that I'll have to walk out with 15 books as opposed to one book. And then our nightstand. My nightstand became a library as opposed to an altar to my spiritual evolution. And I dabble at each of those books. I open it up and I read a paragraph. You know, Barbara King, Dr. Barbara King, God rest her soul, used to talk about the dabbling that goes on in New Thought. We're dabblers. As opposed to going into the bookstore and saying, this is the one that I need and I'm going to digest it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to integrate it into my life in such a way that I will become more. No, it's easier to have 15 books on the nightstand and go, okay, God, which one should I read now? And page 14. No, I don't like that. Let me get something else. Don't we all do that? Come on, let's get real with each other. This is a place where we can get real. I've been there and I have done that. We often say in this community, many paths, one God. That feels really good, doesn't it? Many paths, one God. That does not mean that we are studying all those paths. It does not mean that we are living them all, because that would be an impossibility at any depth whatsoever. Even if the variety is very entertaining to our human mind and our human ego. That phrase more aptly means honor. We honor all of the various paths to God, and each one of us is on a different path. We're going up a mountain. You're going your way. Sam's going his way. Joel's going his way. Nancy's going her way. But we're going to end up at the same place. But we cannot walk all the paths, or we're perpetually just going in a circle. There's a lot of New Thought people just going in circles. And we're never ascending to anywhere else because we're not putting down deep roots. Deep roots, we go higher. The deeper the roots of the tree, the higher the tree is going to go. And the same is true with our spiritual paths. There's an unspoken caveat when we talk about honoring all the paths to God, and that is that you will dig one of them. You will dig one of them, and you will dig it deeply. Breathe that in. You pick the one that resonates with your soul, and you get busy with the work. Enlightenment is missed by a lot of people because it comes in wearing overalls and looks like hard work and putting on gloves. No, it's just easier. Let me go to a new book. Let me go to a new church. Let me go to a new religion. You know what? He who has the most wells wins doesn't work in the religious system. He who knows the most about a little bit of dabbling is not the answer here. This is the answer. Let's put the next slide up there, please. Let's read it together. He who has the deepest well prospers. We want to be a community of people, of a collective and individuals who are prospering, who are living at the highest apex of health and wealth and prosperity and goodness and love and relationships. And you're only going to get that if you were digging a very deep well. Yes, say this with me again. He who has the deepest well prospers. And it matters much less which spiritual path you are choosing, which spiritual book you are choosing, and more, that whatever one you choose, that you are mining it to the depth of the water. That is deep, deep. You know, the clearest, cleanest, most beautiful water, the most nutritious water is at the place of depth. It's not at the surface. Variety, yes, variety is the spice of life. It's so fun to play, but it can also be the great distraction to the actual work of spiritual evolution. I'm starting to meddle, as sometimes people say. I'm starting to meddle. But the variety can be the great distraction to a life that is evolving. We are so programmed by our culture to avoid boredom at any cost, that anything that resembles routine and repetition is considered stale. Let me talk about the word routine. The word routine originally meant a route or a road or a course of travel for trading. But Zen Buddhist Gary Thorpe says it means something completely different. Let's read that together. Routine equals a route of a religious pilgrimage. There are those coming from a deeper place, a more spiritual consciousness, that see the word routine as the means by which God is evolved in our soul, as the means by which we awaken to the divine essence of our very being, and then live from a spiritual reality, not a human reality, an internal reality and not an external reality. It's a religious pilgrimage. How many of you are on a religious pilgrimage of some kind? I hope to God that all the hands go up in the room. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If you're not on a religious pilgrimage or a journey of some kind to discover who you are, go on down, have lunch. Have lunch early. But if you are, that's what we do here. We dig deep. And we dig deep with a consistent approach to questioning, to challenging, to asking, to being, to sitting, to being still. All of the above must be present in the room, or you're just wasting your time. We're on a spiritual pilgrimage. And the routines that we put into place are essential to achieving whatever goal you have before you. Let me hear your goal. Call it out. What is your goal for life? Okay, let me ask you again, because that was probably a weak response. I want, when the world rushes in and says, Mike Stott, what is your goal? Donna Stott, what is your goal? That it falls off your lips because it's so rehearsed, it's so ready, and it's so passionate. What is your goal for life? Okay, we'll get there by the end of the talk. But the reality is that goal becoming a reality and being achieved in your life is only going to happen through consistent practice. Ask any musician. Ask any athlete. Ask any entrepreneur. The only way you're going to succeed is with consistency. You make the commitment, then you take the step with the second sister and get consistent about doing whatever it takes to make that a reality. Think of a dinner party. You know, our culture just does not support this. What are the questions you hear at dinner parties, at social gatherings in the United States of America? What's new? What's new? What's kicking? Hey, what's exciting in your life? I don't think I've ever heard at one dinner party this question. Hey, how are you doing with your regular practice of becoming? Nobody asks that question. Oh, that's boring. Why is that so strange to us? Because we have been programmed. Our culture has programmed us with the inherited notion that variety is the spice of life, and without it, you're merely in a rut. And so we get in line. We just get in line with the hungry ghost society and ever work on having new experiences, new spiritual books, new spiritual paths, so that we'll have something to share of interest at the next dinner party. Breathe it in. Something to share that's exciting in the external world, as opposed to something that's stirring and moving and elevating you in the internal world that might be boring at the dinner party, but is the exact necessary step by step process to realizing that you are the light of the world. That you weren't born broken or stained, but you are a magnificent child of God, and that we're all one. You want to be all one? You got to be diligent about not making exceptions to where you find the face of God when they show up in your field. That's consistency. Oh, I find the face of God over here, but these people over here, I'm not too sure. And so we get in line with the hungry ghost society. Think about this mindset. Think today about this kind of mindset with these things. You know, I fed the baby last week. You know, I watered the plants once. How about this one? I'll take a shower next month. I go to work once in a while. You know, I tried meditation a couple of times. Prayer is kind of nice when it's convenient. You know, I tried tithing for a month, but I'm not rich yet. It doesn't work. Hey, I think I'll eat in a couple of weeks. Good luck with that. Good luck with that kind of lack of consistency in your life. It doesn't work. As much as our culture is always looking for the new, there's something important to our survival individually and collectively, and that is the consistent spiritual path. The boring moments of getting up and doing it again. Getting up and doing it again. It's not a sexy talk. I can inspire you with sexy words. There's nothing sexy about consistency, but boy, is it necessary. I stand before you today because I consistently got up in the dark night of the soul, and I kept putting the spiritual laws into place. Imagine your life, your spiritual life, as a magnificent balloon, a big, giant red balloon, and it's full of possibility. It's full of spiritual ideas, and there's a lot of people that are full of a lot of things on the spiritual path. A lot of it could be hot air. But imagine that balloon exploring the world. It's amazing and it's wonderful. And you're rising to new places and to new exciting places. And the winds of life are blowing you left and blowing you right. And it looks so pretty. It looks so pretty until the wind blows it into a tree or the side of a house. Pop. Or put a little helium in there. you get a little high. Don't you get high? There are people on the spiritual path that get really high. Woo, these ideas are feeling so good, and they're going into the atmosphere, and there they go, and when they get high enough, what happens? Pop! Poof! It was all for nothing, and it's wasted. There is an essential, non-sexy part of the spiritual path, and that is the rock that balloon is tied to. It is a thread between the ethereal, the spiritual, the beautiful, and being in the world, and letting yourself be grounded with a consistent commitment to what it is you have decided is the path to express and to experience God. That rock, God is absolute. Spiritual laws are absolute. That which we teach in this church is absolute. It is unchanging. So we might want to look at the importance of also being a little bit unchanging. Now, this got challenged in the first service. Somebody said, well, you know, our bodies, our cells are always renewing themselves. They're always rejuvenating. So how does that compute? If our bodies are doing that, why don't we do that as well? And I thought about that because it really challenged me. I took a few notes here about the response that came download. And it was only because I was grounded to not being nervous about I'm being challenged in this service. There's a system in place. Our bodies are created in a system. And if you think about cells that are reproducing, that are rejuvenating themselves, that are always creating new and new and new and new, there is a system in place. Because what happens if there is no system in place for those cells working in conjunction, in partnership? That's called cancer. Cells that are just recreating, that are going to the heights, and they're popping, and they're going against a tree, and they're popping, that is called cancer. And I'm saying to a degree that we have a religious, spiritual cancer on the planet today because we're just going to the next workshop and the next book. There is an importance to the consistency, a system that grounds us, the rock of spiritual law and spiritual principle. That means you meditate every day. You tithe every month, that you pray every moment becomes a prayer. Every breath becomes a prayer. It is vitally, vitally, vitally important. Now, I'm not saying that cancer exists here. Certainly, we're all elevated and we're all committed. You're here in the room. Thank you for being here, consistently being here. But, you know, you're not going to get the benefit of Unity North or any spiritual organization coming on Christmas and Easter. Or you're not going to get the benefit of Unity North. Oh, the monks are coming, so I'll come now. I'll come back home. Let's just get real. Consistent participation is consistent payoff. And I'm going to be really honest here that I've struggled as a minister with being one person available to a congregation of 700. And every week there's somebody that I haven't seen for 5 years that comes saying, I need help. Help me. Who are you again? And I struggle because I have a bit of a codependent heart. But I've had to say, no, I'm sorry. Consistency out, consistency in. It's the way it works. I'm only one person with 24 hours. Our staff is limited. And if you're not consistently buying into the work that's happening here, the evolutionary process for you, we can't not be available to you. And I get people who get really angry at me. How dare you? I've been a member of this church for 40 years. Gosh, I haven't seen you for 38. It's just getting real. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. Think. You know, somebody once said, you know, I'm not getting it from church anymore. It's not feeding me anymore. And I said, good, that's the moment that you get into service. That's the moment when you lead Thanksgiving. That's the moment when you are the one that's co-partnering with Averill on the monks. That's the moment that the Foster Parents Association, you say, that's mine. I've got it. It is the greatest form of knowing God. And it's the greatest cop-out to say, it doesn't work for me anymore. I'm going to go to a new church. There's no consistency. And then you get tired of that church and you go to a new one. It's just a reality, folks. Consistency is important if you're going to become the divine essence that you are meant to be. Amen? Amen, Atiba? All right. So what are the benefits of being consistent? Well, certainly you're going to build better relationships. Better relationship with yourself. Your divine self, your Christ self can count on you. That your human stuff isn't taking the lead, but the essence, the Buddha nature, the light is absolutely leading. You have better relationship with the infinite. You're partnering on a consistent basis. So when life gets difficult or the dark night of the soul hits, you have an established, consistent relationship with the principles and the laws and God itself. Yes? Let's just get practical. You're going to have better relationships in your life. Inconsistent relationships don't last very long. People will know what to expect from you. There's a line that went around a few years back on both sides of the political aisle. When people show you who they are, believe them. Consistency will show exactly who you are and the kind of friend, the kind of partner you will be. People can depend on you. People will know, admire, and respect your track record for consistency, and doors will open. Plain and simple. How come they got the door open and I didn't? Because they showed up and they were there. Day after day, week after week. Anybody a business owner in here? Yeah, the employees that get put ahead in your business are the ones that show up day in and day out. And the ones that show up when it's convenient don't last very long in the business, do they? You are more successful in achieving your goals. And guess what? Let's get scientific. Consistency creates neural pathways. Synapses begin to bounce around your brain. Your brain is responding. Your physiology is responding to the spirituality, to the consistent practice. And grooves are being, not ruts, grooves are being created in that brain that did not exist before. And therefore what happens? The difficult tasks become habits that are easy. The difficult things, the things that cause you to get angry and upset, no longer do that because now they are habits of ease and success. Would you like a little more ease and success in your life than be a little bit more consistent? Plain and simple. Consistency will create safety that you can count on, thereby creating better and more intimate relationships with yourself, with God, and with others. St. Paul knew this way back. I got to go to the Bible here. St. Paul and Jesus get a little bit of a mention here today because they were teaching this, but maybe a little disguised. Here's what St. Paul had to say. Let's read it together from 1 Corinthians chapter 15 together. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abound in the work of the Lord. The word Lord is more accurately translated as the word law. That's the rock. Law, spiritual laws, repeatable practices. Averill will tell you that. In her practice, you don't miss a day of meditation because the rock gets a little bit lighter. You miss a second day and a third day. Next thing you know, you're floating into the atmosphere. Ooh, it feels so good. Pop. That practice is necessary. So St. Paul knew this for brethren and sistern, that you had to be steadfast, unmovable, and abound in the work of the spiritual law to keep you safe and from blowing in the wind. Many of you know that I was a foster parent. Susie and I were foster parent to over 100 kids. And 100 kids. And we were not necessarily the best parents in the world, although Susie was probably much better than me. We were the most consistent parents. And when they came to our house, kids that had been abused, severely abused, who had all kinds of trouble, came into our house, and we had incredibly great success with those kids. And the social services agency said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're consistent. They know they can count on us. Our discipline might not be the newest and latest, greatest discipline, but those kids could count on us. It was a safe environment. We were consistent about our love for them. We were consistent about owning our own failings as parents, as a family unit. And we were consistent, whether it was cutting edge or not, as parents. That created a safe environment. And those kids may have rebelled. They may have rebelled. They may have pushed against us. But they came back when they were 25 and 26 and said, "Thank God. Thank God you were consistent in your idiocy. Thank God you were consistent in the love that you offered and the mistakes that you made, because it created a safe environment for me to explore and to get on board the vision of what you held for me." We weren't the best parents, but we were the most consistent parents. And let me tell you, what makes this talk today more than just theory is the calls I get from a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old and said, "You changed my life." Not because you were the greatest parents, but because you were consistent. Thank you for making it safe for me. That's what the rock does. It makes the balloon safe. That's what spiritual law and principle does for each of us on our path. It makes it safe. so that we can grow. That's what community does. It makes it safe. Let me try it on. Let me fall down. Let me get back up. But there's a grounding. There's a commitment. And those that come back once every 10 years and expect that safety to be here are not going to experience it. Consistency out, commitment out, consistency and commitment back. Ours is to stay awake. Jesus knew this as well. Let's give Jesus his due today. He's coming out of the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's got those 12 clowns that he was hanging around with, those 12 apostles that often let him down, that often fell asleep. He represents the Christ, the Spirit, the divine light that's speaking to each of us this October at Unity North. And this is what he says to them. Let's put that next up there. Let's read it together. Can't you stick it out with me a single hour? Stay alert. Be in prayer so you don't wander into temptation without even knowing you're in danger. Pop! Pop! Let's continue. There is a part of you that is eager, ready for anything in God, but there's another part that's as lazy as an old dog sleeping by the fire. That's from the Message Bible, a little more modern language, but that's some tough love, isn't it? It's some tough love. They told me in seminary that if I didn't have a little tough love, I wasn't causing an organization to grow. I want to be in a growing organization. That means commitment, and that means consistency. I don't want a sanctuary full of old dogs laying by the fire. You know, the cats don't care. Jesus knew the power of cultivating commitment and consistency. And that, guess what? It gets difficult. We're on a birthing process, a continual birthing process, and anybody who's given birth knows that that can be painful. Pain is temporary. Quitting is permanent. Walking away and quitting because it got painful is permanent. And it speaks to the divine essence of your soul. Nah, I'll settle for good enough. I'll settle for mediocrity. I'm not really committed, but I'll be back in 10 years when I can't pay my rent. I'll be back in 10 years when I got a diagnosis. You're my church. I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry. Love will be here for you, but I've got 10 people that are sick, that can't pay their rent, that have been here every Sunday for the last 10 years. I didn't expect to say that. It's hit a nerve. This is a practice. It is a lifestyle. It is not a hobby. If you want a convenience store church, there's probably plenty of choices for you. This cannot and will not be one of them. And if that pisses you off, good. Think about it. Come tell me how it pissed you off. Come tell me how we can work together to have you become everything that I know you can be. I'm going to go to a few quotes here, and then we're going to wind this up and go into meditation, and John's going to lead our meditation today. Tom Seaver, anybody know the name Tom Seaver? This was the big argument. They were pushing back on everything first service. I said, one of the greatest pitchers of all time in the major leagues. Well, no, I think Nolan Ryan is much better. How about we quit arguing and we just let the point sit? This is what Tom Seaver had to say together. In baseball, my theory is to strive for consistency, not to worry about the numbers. If you dwell on statistics, you get short-sighted. If you aim for consistency, the numbers will be there at the end. We are so concerned about what's happening out here. And we float, and we float, and we float, that we've ignored what's happening in here. We must be the cause. Spirituality is about being the cause of a new reality out here. If you're waiting around for things to change out there before you believe the principles, too late. Tom Seaver proves it. The strikeouts will follow the commitment and the consistency to the practice. But don't take his word for it. How about Abraham Lincoln? Not one of the best pitchers in the world, but one of the best presidents, arguably. This is what he had to say. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. That'll confront your spiritual path. Either we want an experience of God or we don't. Either we want to know the infinite presence of our divine essence or we don't. We are either digging the well with a thirst for the pure water that is at the depth, or we are content with entertaining our dinner guests with a backyard full of shallow holes. Oh, you'll be interesting at the dinner party, but you're going to be the same person tomorrow that you are today, or you were 10 years ago. I go home and visit my family, and they have a lot of shallow wells, and it's as if I'm stepping back to 1972 when I go home. Nobody's grown. Well, maybe 1973. There's been a little bit of growth. It's only because I was willing to challenge them as I'm willing to challenge you, as I'm willing to challenge myself about consistency and commitment. The spiritual path requires consistency. I'm going to invite the band to kind of come back up. Let's go ahead with Stephen Covey. I'm sure you recognize that name. He's probably one of the 15 books on your nightstand. This is what Stephen Covey has to say. Together, most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. Any self-assessment, we will see that a good portion of our lives and a good portion of our spiritual path is distraction and not priority. A good portion of our spiritual lives is distraction and not priority. I find it is very vitally important to regularly make myself aware. What is mine and what is not mine? Jesus taught that. What is my yes? What is my no? And I will make my yes. And I will get up on the dark night of the soul and make that morning yes. I know my yes. I know what I'm about. I know where I'm going. I know where I come from. And I know what is mine to do on earth. And I will not waver from that. Oh, it will take iterations and forms, but I will not give up when it gets painful. I will not give up when it gets dark. Little music would be great. I will not give up when I'm uncomfortable. I'm either making every step of my life as a pilgrimage, a route, a routine to God, or I'm bored with it and I'm driven by endless distractions. Squirrel! Squirrel! And we laugh until we look at the man in the mirror. And I can't stand there and look into the eyes of the Christ in the mirror. It's like, this is getting uncomfortable, Richard. Squirrel! This is painful. Squirrel! The man in the mirror. You've got this. You've got this. Put one foot in front of the other. You've got this. And even more important than you've got this is we've got this. Turn to your left and your right and say to somebody, we've got this. I'm inviting you as we go into meditation to consider the possibility that whether it be prayer, whether it be meditation, whether it be tithing and generosity, whether it be chanting, mantra, watering the plants, feeding the baby, taking a shower, going to work, or just living the life that you are destined to live, that each activity contains within it the possibility of being a road to yourself, a route to God. But only if you commit consistently to walking it every single day. I don't want to live in a cancerous society anymore. Anything goes. Dig your well deep, because the healing water is at the depth of that well. And then bring that water and share it with those here. We'll drink the water. Let me share my water with you. This is not vodka. Let me share the water with you. And somehow the whole is made better. And not just the whole that is this community, it is the whole that is the world. And I want to offer a special prayer. It is easy to be inconsistent, but right now what's happening on the planet is pretty amazing. Young people everywhere are saying, no more. No more of balloons going through. We're going to stand in the fire and put our lives in the middle of Iran. And to say, no more. I want to hold those young people, in particular those young women who are saying, no more. Consistent love, not just for the men, not just for them over there, but for everybody. And young people are right in your backyard, and they're calling you out to be a little bit more grounded to the love that we teach in this spiritual system, your spiritual system. And let that be the anchor and the rock that keeps this balloon that's about ready to pop from popping. It's boring. It'll be boring. I could get up here and teach the 5 principles every single week, and you go, it's not entertaining to me. Well, you have people that go to other churches. The music's more entertaining to me. I didn't realize that I was in the entertainment business. I thought I was in the spiritual business, the spiritual growth business. Let yourself be bored, and then let yourself get into service. And then let yourself become the Buddha, the Christ, and the Atman through the regular, consistent commitment to what we do here.